To the Metanoia Discourse. I'm your host Sim, and today I have as a guest Jon Yuen, who's an Oslo-based movement coach, or is more than a movement coach, as you will hear as we get into it. Like me and Yuen, we go way back, 5 to 6 years of when I think before I actually moved to Norway and got established into Oslo, and we just go through his entire journey of how he got into several movement practices, what drove him, or what he found to be valuable in them. And then I think the most important part of this entire conversation is where he used all these elements to put things together, um, cultures, and not just applications or programs, but an approach and a line of thinking that is his own structure that's born from his creativity alongside with others. So there's a collaborative element in there. And he really came to show about how it's about finding your own way, but also expressing yourself through your work or through the things you create. And it's a very powerful to hear his journey and how these things came together and how he made them work. So without further ado, here's a conversation with you. Here we go. All right, and we are live. So today I'm joined with Jon Yuen, who's sort of known in the movement community. Like I personally would call him a movement guru. I know he might not think of that way of himself, right? But from a lot of the let's say people that get into movement that are really into the fluidity, um, yeah, segment of it and flow, right? I think you were one of the early ones to kind of put things on the map that people were like, this is possible, right? So hence my movement guru uh, conceptualization or naming. So yeah, thanks for coming on today, and let's talk a little bit about like your background, right? Because I remember some of the things you've dropped down the line. So Jon lives in Oslo, where I live. We've met up a few times, and as a little backstory, has also helped me on several occasions, kind of getting unstuck, with giving me some advice or directions to look in. So, which I greatly appreciated still. And then, I just kind of kept these things in mind. So we're just gonna get into it. So your dad, as I remember, is Chinese, right?
Yes, my
Yes.
papa is Chinese. Yes.
Uh-huh. So I'm not sure. Like it might have come up in another podcast or an interview or something. Is that he at an early age already for you put you on to certain martial arts or movement practices or the ideas of these anyway?
Well, most definitely the idea. I mean, I do have footage
Mhm.
of me like 3 years old in a pajama doing uh doing the most interesting roundhouse kicks around the living room while my dad was coaching me and my brother.
Nice.
Um, but he didn't really train me that much.
Mhm.
We didn't really see him that much when we were kids. Like he was a
Mhm.
busy man. He was in love with his work.
Mhm. Yeah.
So but he did plant that seed of inspiration.
Mhm.
Definitely.
Mhm.
He told us all the stories of the street fights that he was in. He put us on the track of our Lord and Savior Bruce Lee.
Of course.
Um, so yeah, I mean, my dad has always been one of my biggest sources of inspiration,
Mhm.
both based on um, how he has dealt with challenges in his life, which has
Mhm.
involved a lot of fighting,
Mhm.
and also just his story so far,
Mhm.
and his philosophies and all of that. So
Mhm.
he encouraged me and my brother to do some martial arts.
Yeah. Cool. Was it something, or I guess it's something like karate or kung fu? Is that what you started with?
Yeah, like my dad never trained
Mm.
martial arts himself. He
Uh,
just fought and he watched a lot of movies and it was like,
uh,
oh shit, that's a cool move and let's
uh,
practice that. And it even got to the point where he was like, I mean, he was first and foremost a street fighter, but everyone was like, abroad outside of China, they were like, oh, here's
mm.
this Chinese guy who can fight. Surely he must know the secrets to kung fu. Please, Mr. Yuen, teach me the secret monkey jade dragon kick. And then, so my dad, when he traveled abroad, or
Uh,
he went to Portugal,
uh,
and he moved to a town in Portugal by the name of Porto, and he started a martial arts school without really knowing martial arts.
all right.
He knew the practical side of it.
Yeah.
He kicked ass on
Uh,
several occasions. And he he and his brother ended up writing a book on martial arts without any training, without any knowledge. And so me and
mm,
my siblings, we've been trying to find this book. We're like, Jesus Christ, we want to read this book.
yeah.
But we have yet to find it, unfortunately. But
Okay.
yeah, it's like he started giving us some basic like
Mm,
Chinese wushu, like wushu kung
mm.
fu
No.
drills, and then um, I think the moment my dad was the proudest of me was when I asked him at the tender age of like 10 or 11. I
Mm.
asked him, Father, who is Bruce Lee? And he said, I'll show you. And so he put me on the path of Bruce Lee, and then I
Uh-huh.
started training. Then I started training those kind of martial arts like
Yeah.
Jeet Kune Do,
Mm.
uh, Kali, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Amazing. And I guess with that as well comes a lot of the, well, training philosophy, or like really we could call it training philosophy, but when we think of Bruce Lee and the Eastern practices, right, they have a really big element of philosophy in general, right? So was that
hmm
something that also interested you? I mean, maybe not when you were 11 or 12 or 10, but down the line that these things kind of made their way to the surface.
Um, I mean, when I was a kid, the thing, things that, or later also in
Mm,
life, the things that appealed to me with these martial arts were that they were cool.
mm,
Like they just looked cool. They
uh,
had an air of mysticism. They
mm,
told a cool story and all of that. And I it took me a long time to see whether or not they were practical and applicable because nobody
mm,
would fight me because I was the only Chinese dude at my school who
uh,
knew kung fu.
mm.
So they were like, "Oh, we're not going to fight you." So I was like, "Man, I am I am a capable fighter."
Winning.
um so um s- so yeah, like I was attracted to it not because of philosophy
Mm,
but because of the fact that it was just cool. It
mm,
just attracted me. And later on, I kind of I kind of took a big step away from traditional martial arts and I started
mm,
focusing on the more practical stuff.
mm,
And that to me was when I saw the necessity for some of the philosophies, not all of them.
mm,
I don't want
mm,
to think myself away from action or happiness, so I
mm,
try to be careful with philosophy.
mm,
Um, so yeah, like having a philosophy of discipline uh, or humility
mm,
or being able to change your mind on certain things is way more important. At
mm,
least it was to me when you're dealing with something that makes a bigger impact.
mm.
And like, sorry, but Brazilian jiu-jitsu has a bigger impact than praying mantis kung fu because it's more dangerous, right? It's more
What?
dangerous towards it's more
Uh,
dangerous towards your opponent, it's more
yeah.
dangerous towards you, and
Mm,
then you have a certain amount of responsibility and you need to
mm.
reflect on that. And that's
Yeah.
when philosophy can come in handy.
Yeah, totally. So you got into BJJ at some point as well, then, because I'm not sure if you've ever really mentioned that. I think I've heard people talk about, or that maybe you've talked about it with people, but how did that
Yeah,
come to be?
I just wanted to try out. Again,
Mm,
this is my dad's fault. He from very early on he said like you have there are two choices that you
mm,
have and that you need to make. Um, the first one is to choose to become the best at whatever you do, and the second
mm,
one is just to choose to become better.
mm,
And what he meant by that is like you don't have to walk down this predetermined path
mm,
towards Jeet Kune Do mastery or
mm,
becoming the a brilliant lawyer or
mm,
doctor or anything like that. If you want to, that's cool.
mm,
What you can do is just to focus on yourself and just do whatever you want to do and see whether or not it makes you grow. It makes you better
mm,
somehow. So yeah, always have tried out a lot of different martial arts and a lot of different dance styles and a lot of different hobbies
mm.
just because I feel has a good effect on me.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool. But that's, I mean, maybe some of the stuff that's, well, I guess kind of imprinted in a lot of people early on, where it's like they'll put their kids into a sport and then it's like, oh, they have some knack for it or some talent. And then it's like, no, now we got to go all the way, right? Bring him to a championship, make him a champion, make him the best.
Yeah.
Whereas, I mean, maybe they just want to do something else or experience something else. So most definitely. And you mentioned dance, right? So at what time or point in your life did you start getting into dance?
Pretty late, pretty
Mm-hmm.
late. I was studying music at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and my primary interest for a lot of years had been just music,
Mm-hmm.
singing, playing various instruments. I sang in various choirs as well,
All
and
right.
I ended up working at the opera here in Norway,
Mm-hmm.
and by as fate would have it, one of the ballet teachers there said, uh, and I didn't dance at the time, but he said, you should dance. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
cool. How? And he said,
Mm-hmm.
oh, just meet me Tuesday, 4:30 p.m. Ran. I don't know what time it was. Meet me, and I'll teach you. And he trained me for free for a long, long time.
Wow.
And that's when uh, this guy had such a tremendous amount of belief in me that uh, it opened up the idea that this is something that I can do. This
Mm-hmm.
is if somebody had believes this much in me, then I need to believe in myself. So I
Mm-hmm.
told him, hey, within a year, I'm gonna be, or what was it, a year and a half, a year? Yeah, within a certain amount of time, I'm gonna be a professional dancer. That's my
Mm-hmm.
goal. So I trained with him, and then I trained a lot of different dance styles. And this was maybe around when I was 18, I want to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Awesome. Because I mean, for the people that do know you, we can see that dancing influences in your movement, right? Or at least that's the way I look at it in terms of fluidity and well, you built your own style. And for the people that don't know, you should just follow the link later in the description. I will take you to the his Instagram, and then you'll see, right? Because that's what I mentioned in the beginning, like the this type of fluidity and grace, right? I could say, if you like that term, is not often found in a lot of, well, I mean, you don't necessarily find that in like non-dancers, not that much anyway.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, I mean, uh, I try to combine everything,
Mhm.
and try to do what feels right in the moment,
Mhm.
you know? So sometimes there's more dance, sometimes there's a bit of martial arts. It's
Mhm.
interesting because, like, based on the type of background a person who looks at the video has, they're able to say like, oh, there's a bit of Tai Chi in there, or like, oh, that's a
Mm,
Qigong move, or oh, that's a ballet move, or oh,
mm,
that's popping, oh, that's locking. So
mm,
that's it's pretty cool. Like through doing a lot of different stuff, you get to connect with a lot of different people, and I'm very
mm,
grateful for that.
Yeah, because you have quite a big following, right? I mean, yeah, it's pretty big, and a lot of people that are engaged into your movements and trying things out. So when it came to, I guess, the movement community as we know it or as we see it, like, what was it, the same type of thinking that got you into dancing, that made you try these things that you saw that came from the movement community, or what was it, just more of a process where you were, I don't know, like interested in what else the capability of your body would be possible over, or what you can do with it?
Yeah, difficult to say what came first. I'm
Mm,
not really sure. I was always one of those kids who would, stand in their bedroom and just try out different things. Like, huh, can I pick up this thing while standing on one foot with
mm.
my mouth? Can
Uh,
that sort of thing. Just trying, like just playing and
mm,
seeing whether or not you can come up with cool and interesting stuff.
mm,
Um, I think like my dad gets a lot of credit,
mm,
but my mom deserves a lot of credit as well because she is a very creative person. She
mm,
was the musician in the family. She was the one that
mm,
encouraged us to pursue music and try out more the creative arts. And
mm,
um, so I always just wanted to be creative. I wanted to come up with things,
mm,
either for myself or for the world. You just create something, put it out there, and see how people react to it.
mm,
And I guess that's what, when I saw the movement culture emerge, I thought that this is an excellent opportunity for us to change people's perception about what health is.
mm,
But I didn't agree with how the movement culture was doing it because they were doing like everyone else. It's like
mm,
I'm holier than thou, I'm better than thou, I'm more practical, more functional,
mm,
and just in general better than thou.
mm,
And like, sure, it works marketing wise, but come on, grow up.
mm,
Grow some balls and be okay with not being better than somebody else for just one goddamn second.
mm,
Um, that I disagree with, but I thought that the framework that they provided was really cool because it was
mm,
a framework that basically consisted of this idea: hey, you can do other things.
mm,
Health is not based on exercises. It's not based on performance in a single predetermined activity. You
mm,
can do this as well. You can do
mm,
this movement. You can play with this tennis ball. You can slap yourself with this pool noodle. Like, you can do different things.
mm,
And that's what fascinated me so much was like we can use this mindset to create another mindset, which is creativity.
mm,
You Life and training and whatever else can be a competitive pursuit where you're just
mm,
trying to compete against other people by going, I am quite a lot better than you, sir, or madam,
mm,
or they. Or you can be creative and just go like, I can come up with my own sort of approach
mm,
that I enjoy, that I think might inspire others,
mm,
that I find interesting, that just so happens to make me and perhaps other people healthier.
mm.
That to
Yeah.
me is like, um, yeah, it sparks a lot of joy in my
Mm,
mind to think about the opportunities that we could create for ourselves and
mm,
for others by being creative and
mm,
not only competitive. Not to say that competitiveness isn't important now and then.
mm,
It allows us to set certain standards that can push humankind further and further in a hopefully positive direction.
Mm.
But like for the most part, I
Hmm.
think it brings it with it a lot of unnecessary crap.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I'm supposing, or it's an assumption, but I think the prediction is quite good that it's those types of feelings that also drove you to then start coaching, right? Because I'm not quite sure where you started with coaching, so maybe you can tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I started coaching out of necessity.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh, I need, dude, I just needed money. That's it.
Yeah. Uh,
I had a couple of rough years, and I
mhm,
ended up having to use all my savings,
mhm,
and I had to step away from my job as a dancer because of, well, basically because of like stage fright and anxiety and all of that, and
mhm,
yeah, a pickle of a year.
mhm,
And then I was kind of just thinking to myself, what can I do if what I've used the majority of my life working towards doesn't work anymore?
mhm,
Then I thought, well, what is one thing that you've always done? And
mhm,
it's training,
mhm,
training and being moving and being active. And then I was like, okay, I'll go get a certification
mhm,
and I'll start working.
mhm,
And that's what I did.
mhm,
Yeah, I went to the school,
mhm,
got my certification. And I was fortunate enough to right after school get hired by the school to work as a teacher.
mhm.
And I just started teaching and coaching, and I found out that I kind of liked it.
Yeah. Because
And
it's I believe IFPT, right? So Academy for Personal Training. I mean, that's the in English, it's the
yeah, yeah,
Norwegian one.
yeah, correct, correct.
Mhm.
AFPT.
Yeah, but it was actually quite interesting that I met you through the team physics guys, right? So that's back in the day before I lived in Norway. They were talking about like handstands, and I was like, huh? What? You can do that? All right. Like this is like a good must have been 8 to 9 years ago ish, or like eight 7
Hmm.
years ago. And so we were in Oslo. Me and I mean me and the guys that live in Oslo here from Team Physics, or what was previously Team Physics, and then one of them was being coached by you to get a handstand. I'm
Hmm.
not sure if it was just specifically the handstand, but that's the only thing I remember. So when we came
Oh yeah,
to
I was pretty adamant about the handstands
yeah.
for these guys.
Yeah, cool. So that's when like we went to this place called Optimal Training, and that's where I first met Yoon. And
Oh
you
yeah, yeah,
were
that's right.
teaching one of them. I think it was Ahmed who was doing some handstand work with you. And I
Mm.
just saw you in person doing some stuff, and I was like, damn, okay, this is this is interesting. And then you gave me some tips as well about certain things, and also with the handstands. But that was really cool, like being exposed to that. Um, like eh, for the people that don't know, like the training culture in Belgium back then wasn't really exactly far ahead of anything, or it's pockets of people, and if you don't meet these people, you don't know, right? So I've met a lot of
Mm.
the my training tools and people through Team Physics because they were more connected, and then people in Oslo, or like the culture in Oslo training anyway, was further ahead, regardless of if it had any connection to the movement scene or not. So then for me, it
Yeah.
was just like mind blowing. This guy standing on his hands in that little PT studio. I was like, oh my god, like this is look at this guy. Because Ewan is quite tall as well, and then really well built, and just kind of standing on his hands in a straight line. I was like, this is like Dragon Ball Z stuff. I like, yeah, I don't get it. Like, I need to understand this.
Was that why you like? Was that why you moved to Norway? Was it because of or through Team Physics?
Yeah. So like I got like to make a very long story as short as possible, I had a Norwegian girlfriend that I met online. Um, and then I just kind of got acquainted with the culture, right? So when I got into Norway for the first time, I was like, "Whoa, this is something that I've never seen before." Much like your handstand back in the day, I was wowed and amazed. I was like, "Okay, this is very very different than what I'm used to." And then I think it was just like a chance thing. So I don't know, like, because I didn't spend any time in Oslo whatsoever, but I was looking at
Mm,
stuff on street workouts basically on YouTube. And there was a few guys, so Ulrich Ling, who's the
hmm.
like yeah, you might have met him a few times, right? So bar
Yeah.
bangers. So they had like a thing actually quite close to where my that back then that girlfriend was living. So then like I just kind of was like, oh, I want to meet that guy. And through him, again, like I don't really remember how I got to team physics. And then
Hmm.
that relationship had ended. And then I kept coming to also 3 to 4 times a year for several weeks at a time. And then when I saw what the culture had to offer training wise and the mindset in health and stuff like that, and then the wealth of knowledge here, like people like you and a lot of the team physics guys had things that, or like insights and training approaches that I didn't know of or had access to. And then I was like, okay, the only thing that makes sense is if I move to Oslo and build a life here.
You mentioned that when you arrived here that you were kind of shocked uh, by the culture.
Mhm.
What was it that what was like the biggest culture shock? Would you say?
One of the things to me, like, so I come from the Antwerp area, and then back in the day, like it's you would struggle to find a real gym or a real gym. What I mean with that is like it's not just machines, it's not just this like treadmills and stuff like that, like where people would actually go strength train, right? So there
Mm.
wasn't really anything like that. And when I came to Oslo the first few times, Oslo has a lot of gyms. I was like, there's like gyms everywhere. To me, it felt like coffee stores or coffee shops, like they were all over the place. It was like, to
Yeah.
me, from my perception, it was like they have a gym on every corner here. I mean, oh my God. I was like, I need to like, I just couldn't understand that. I couldn't grasp that concept that it was so popular that they needed that many gyms. And still to this day, it's just like you have gyms all over Oslo and PT studios popping up all the time. And it's that mindset, right? So that the health mindset really that really resonated with me and that I found the most. Like it was shocking, as you can kind of see from my look. I relive that experience every time because it's so far away from what I've grown up with.
Hmm. Oh yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, gyms in Norway. It's
mm,
like Starbucks. They're on every corner.
mm,
They're just a natural part of the urban landscape.
mm. It's really weird. I mean, I love it because it's a part of my thing, but it's
Mhm.
still very odd that that's like a part of the Norwegian, or at least maybe Norwegian is taking it a little bit too far, but at least the urban Norwegian cities that, or
Mhm.
that a city is urban, but the biggest ones that are very, you know, exercise minded or movement
Yeah.
minded, because it's in a Norwegian culture. For those who don't know, right, it's a lot of movement in general. In the winters they'll go ski, several ones, the downhill and the, what's the other one called again?
Cross country.
Cross country, exactly. I only have the German word for some reason. It's the Belgian thing in me. And then like in the summers, right? You have the fjords, you have the mountains or the hills. It's a mountain to me. It's a hill to most Norwegians, right? Where they can
Mm.
go hike and bike, fish, etc. So it's very active here, and that's yeah, like I said, like it's a very big contrast between Belgium 8 years ago and, I mean, it's still with Belgium and also or Norway today, but these types of
Mm.
things, right? So it's very cool. And then what I said about the gyms as well, to kind of further elaborate, is that like the elixias, which is like a chain. Now it's merged, but back then, right, they had a lot more of the performance thinking, which CrossFit is based on. So they had machines and stuff, but they also had a rig and like lifting platforms. And then you see some people doing some crazy lifts, and I was like, okay, what? This guy's
Yeah.
moving 200 kilos off of the floor, and I'm just like, okay, I'm doing pull-ups over here, you know. Not that there's anything wrong with pull-ups. It's just, you know, getting exposed to all these different things. So that's how like I came to Oslo with my eyes wide open, right? And meeting you and all these other people bringing a lot to the table. And it's yeah, that was very, very cool.
Yeah. Oh man, it's so fascinating to think about how big a
Mm,
part the environment plays,
mm.
into things like health.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Because there's been a lot of Um, well, I mean, I got acquainted with the movement culture later on than when I met you back then. I mean, when we talk about 8 years ago, even though it's probably was already happening in the background, I had no conceptualization of its existence. So I was
Mm.
really clueless. And then like getting exposed to your things and getting exposed to some other people things, and then getting into the movement culture, and then you go like, oh wow, like, and a lot of these things, right, overlap. And people, when you start hearing the same type of information from several angles, then your, let's say, your idea of health gets more robust. Right?
Hmm.
Whereas like, let's say like my example is like most of my information came from Men's Health and Men's Fitness magazines. And
The good old days.
exactly. Not exactly, you know, it's better than what you would get in Belgium from any other information. But when it came to, okay, health, like what is healthy or what is health, those magazines were a step closer, but not exactly what I learned from people like you and Ido Portal, for instance, things that he brought up, and then other strength coaches or other movement guys, right? So it's
Mm.
definitely the, like you said, the environment plays a huge role into
Yeah.
all of these things, right? So it's, I mean, like a lot of things, I guess, for a lot of people, it's by chance that I got to meet Yoon, because even though Oslo isn't that big of a city, you know, like it's not like we are bump into each other on a daily basis.
Hmm. Yeah. Very true. Very
Mhm.
true.
But yeah, to kind of circle back a little bit, let's talk a little bit more about like how your coaching developed from there on out.
Yeah. I worked at I mean the gym where I took my certification. I just asked for a job there, and
Mm-hmm.
I got hired. And
Mm-hmm.
then after some time, started working at this gym that you mentioned, Optimal Training.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent a couple of years there, and then I kind of just took a look around. I took a look at my clients,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought to myself, it's very strange. It's very strange that we are, first and foremost, my clients, they they probably already know a lot of the things that they need to be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't know enough about all the many ways it is possible to be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And I also find it very strange that everyone is prescribing the same stuff.
Yeah.
Again, like this is the benefit of a culture, and the
Mm-hmm.
downside of a culture is that we have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of cultural baggage. We tend to conform to certain ideas and believe that these are normal, and
Mm-hmm.
then we create a norm that isn't necessarily applicable to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided just to quit. And I took a look at my Instagram, and I just looked through all of the people I was following and my followers, and I just started calling people.
Mm-hmm.
Just asked them, "Hey, do you want to talk?"
Mm-hmm.
Just to get exposed to more points of view, exposed
Mm-hmm.
to more cultures,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, cultural points of view.
Yeah.
And just told these people, hey, I am open to travel to wherever you live and
Mm-hmm.
to do a workshop.
Mm,
And my goal for that first year was to just break even. I didn't have
mm,
to like uh make major bank at all. I just wanted to do things. So I
mm,
ended up traveling for, well, th- 3 years or so.
mm,
Just traveled around, did workshops in places I thought that I would never go to, let alone teach in.
mm,
And um, I try to stay open to or try to focus on this idea of how culture and environment influences us,
mm,
our our train of thought and where that train is heading,
mm,
and other what other opportunities there are.
mm,
Because um, yeah, I think that one of the other things besides being creative in our endeavor to become healthier and happier
mm,
is, yeah, another thing besides that is understanding how our environment and our culture influences us,
mm,
both in good ways and in bad ways, and what we can learn from each other.
mm,
Um, Yeah, and I guess that this was now we've credited both my dad and my mom, and now I need to credit both of them at the same time. You know,
mm,
I grew up with a Chinese dad and a Norwegian mother,
mm,
so I was incredibly fortunate in the sense that I got to experience both cultures when I grew
mm,
up. I got to spend time in the deepest and dankest parts of Norway, like out on the countryside in the boonies, and I also got to
mm,
spend time in the biggest Chinese cities and also in the
mm,
smallest fishing villages there.
mm,
And when, like, one of the things that really confused me quite a
mm,
lot on a deep and personal level when I was a kid was like, why are these people so different? Like,
mhm,
why, like, how is it possible for people to lead such different lives and have such different perspectives and still seem to be pretty okay?
mhm,
And then it became like this opportunity to understand that most people ask themselves the same questions, but
mm,
they answer them in wildly different ways. And
mm,
it's possible to have wildly different answers to the same questions and
mm.
still be okay.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I guess that was something that really interested me when I was traveling, and
Mm,
now I just feel like I have still a shit ton more to learn about different cultures and different people.
mm,
I also feel like I I am fortunate enough to look at, yeah, to basically investigate cultures on a frequent basis and try to understand how it influences people.
mm. Yeah, for sure.
That's now a major part of my coaching, or at least my coaching mindset, is to understand how this works.
Mm,
Try
yeah.
to understand how it works. I will
Yeah.
not claim to understand it.
Yeah. But it's, I mean, it's very fascinating because people can start there just with themselves, right? You can always ask yourself that question, like, how is my environment influencing me? And then you have both ends of the spectrum, right? So, in which way is that a beneficial thing, and in which way is that a detriment to maybe what you want or what you want to achieve or how you feel, right? And then the same thing, that thinking can be overlaid on, okay, what about the culture that I'm a part of when it comes to my movements, right? So, because this is something that I talked about with David Erickson, right? Free to Frame, and you guys are
Mhm.
very, very well acquainted, where we were talking about like the
He's an
every
asshole,
good. I'll tell him.
total asshole.
He'll love hearing this as well.
David, if you're listening to this, you are as far from an alpha as you believe to be, and I care about you deeply.
Good. David, you got the message. You heard it here first. But yeah, in any case, so it came up in our conversation as well, where when you enter a martial art or you enter a movement scene, right, whichever one that is, you get to be acquainted with the culture, right, and then you absorb that, and then it's after that you can kind of, or maybe even during, I guess, depending on your level of awareness and what your intention was going in, but that you can go like, okay, this is what I want to take out from it or take with me and that I like, and this is maybe what I don't like as much. And these are all very beneficial things in, like Yun said, building your own approach, right? Which is,
Mhm.
I always have to laugh at that a little bit because a lot of people use that Bruce Lee quote, right? So use what is useful, discard what is useless, but
Mhm.
they never do it. It's just they don't go into these things like looking at what is useful and discarding it. They just keep doing the same thing. And like, it doesn't matter if it's Jeet Kune Do or any other martial art, like they've abused that quote, but the martial art itself hardly ever develops. You know what I mean? Or the training
Yeah.
practice. So that's
Yeah.
yeah. So in there's a big difference. I mean, the way we can look at it, right? In understanding the bottom principle or the fundamental principle of a saying or a philosophy or whatever that you use, right? Whereas people use that kind of like an intellectual calling card at times, like, oh, look at this amazing quote, and then you look at what they're doing and you just go like, yeah, but you aren't doing what he says. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
It's generally a good idea not to overestimate a principle that you can't or don't use, you
Mm,
know?
100%. But yeah, when it comes to cultures and environments, right, it's a big thing, and that's maybe, or maybe like something that I thought was very um, beneficial for me using that frame of thinking, because I've had my own moments where I was like looking at my environment, which is what initially made me move from Belgium to Norway, where I was like, this is never gonna work. Like if I stay in Belgium, I'm gonna be handcuffed to this environment, even with my many attempts to break away, and you just kind of keep getting roped back in. And then with other things that I've been a part of as well, in martial arts, where it was like, you know what, like it's not going the direction, it's not forming into the thing that I want to experience or that I feel good about, right? Which is also something that you turned me on to quite some time ago. Must have been almost 4 years or 3 years now, where you gave me this idea to go look at. I think it's a short ebook on like building a tribe or building a culture that I found
Mm.
very fascinating. That really opened my mind, and I was like, huh, like this is. I mean, as again, like in this in industrialized process, or the way we look at how society works kind of works from the other end, where it's just like, okay, we want this or we want that, instead of this organic development of a community, right? Which is also what, I mean, for some people anyway, for me, definitely kind of got people into movement culture or even CrossFit, right? That's an element, the culture, the community, that environment that might have been missing. But you kind of went an interesting route with that, is where you also created your own online community, right? Which was a movement, uh, what was it? Online Movement University or Move You?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
butchering this a little
No, no,
bit.
no. You're right. The online movement university.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
started that with my brethren,
Mm,
uh, DJ Murakami and
mm.
Jonathan, whose surname I will not butcher. Um, it's something like Jane Master, something like that. I don't know.
Okay.
He calls himself Windmaster, so I will do him the honor of calling him.
uh,
Um, yeah, yeah. It was something that I've been planning or working on for a long time, but it just
mm,
never came to fruition.
mm,
And then I, by pure circumstance, ended up talking with DJ.
mm,
And then I was like, okay, this is a guy that I need to work with.
mm,
Uh, we have very different perspectives on things, but we share the
mm.
same values, I think,
Yeah.
and we get along.
Mm,
And um, then we both agreed that we also wanted to work, or that we needed to work with Jonathan. And then we created OMU, the
mm,
Online Movement University, which was basically what we did was every month we got in a new presenter who
mm,
taught, who was an expertise
Mm.
expert within a specific field. I mean,
Mm.
and yeah, they would teach for a month, and then the next month there would be a new presenter, and the next one a new one, and we
Mm.
ended up having a really big community behind this.
Mm.
And of like most other things, you come for the thing, right?
Mm.
Like the lessons and the teaching and all of that, but you stay for the community.
Mm.
So we did that for quite some time, and now we have decided to change
Mm.
the business and the community a bit. So now we're doing something called Movement Quest,
Mm.
which is also an online community. It's first and foremost an online community. It is
Mm.
live now if you want to check it out.
Mm.
And our primary mission with Movement Quest is to have fun.
Mm.
Movement culture and fitness culture too takes itself way too serious, right?
Mm.
There's no need to act like you're going into war every single day, where you can have fun too.
Mm.
And so we decided to mix one of my guiltiest and most delectable pleasures and
Mm.
movement.
Mm.
So we decided to go full on fantasy and movement. So when you go into this community, you
Mm.
can choose which class you want to be. Who
Mm.
are you? A fighter from the steppes, a rogue from the who traverses the rooftops of your neighborhood? Are you a cleric of the deity known as Ido, or are you perhaps a wizard who spins yarns from the fabric of dreams? Like,
Mm.
you decide that. And so
Yeah,
so
I'm
it's
digging it.
like it's just gonna be like
Uh,
it we're having fun with it for a specific reason, which is
mm.
to make people step away from, like, we mock fantasies being childish, but as many there are
Mm.
an equal amount of ideas that we have that are equally based on fantasy.
Mm.
Like, for example, the fantasy of thinking that you'll be happy once you have your one arm chin up, or thinking that you will be happy once you earn like $70,000 per year.
Mm.
Maybe that's not the case. Maybe that is pure fantasy.
Mm.
So by willingly going into the realm of fantasy and
Mm.
having the social agreement that this is silly,
Mm.
it allows you to reevaluate the things that you do in real life that are equally fantastical
Mm.
and silly.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, we have a lot of fun in this community. We have
Mm.
like podcast exclusives. We play like games together, and we're also gonna go on quests. So
Mm.
that's the main thing we're gonna do. We're gonna bring in presenters who are gonna take us on quests. It could
Cool.
be the quest of learning how to like roll a frying pan with your bare hands. It could be the quest of
Uh-huh.
going on a longer trek,
Uh-huh.
like a marathon or
Mm.
a semi-marathon or something. Um, and yeah, we're just gonna have fun with it, and we're not gonna take it seriously.
Yeah, but that's beautiful, right? Because I mean, it lends itself from a lot of the things you were talking about throughout our conversation, right? And the level of creativity, because I saw it emerging, right? Because I follow you and I follow DJ and I follow Jonathan, and then I followed the Movement Quest Instagram, and I was my curiosity was piqued. I was like, okay, the Movement Quest, like from the get go, the name alone, it really sounded to me like this is gonna be like something gamey, like RPG. I was like LARPing. I'm not sure which direction they're gonna take this in. And then it just kind of came out the way I was sort of like grasping in that direction. And the first thing is like, I can't believe it. Like this is it's such a breath of fresh air. I mean, just in general, but like not just in movement, but like even on the social media landscape, which is affected by that same type of seriousness, if you will. And it's really, yeah, like I love it. Like maybe you don't know that, but I'm a huge nerd, basically. So like I'm really
I know of your World of Warcraft
uh,
craft past, and I
good.
respect it, good sir.
Past, so that's the thing, like it's not in the past, man. It hasn't
Oh,
never stopped
even
being in the
better, dude.
past. Yeah. Like I've played the previous, or like the new expansion, which is Shadowlands. So for those that don't know, check it out. But I've been playing that from like November to January, and I just kind of get a little bored, so I have my breaks. But yeah, like that's one thing that maybe as I'm maturing, or the way I think about things, and this thing about like self identity, let's say, where it's like I could still do whatever I want to enjoy, and I could still have fun, right? I think that sometimes is a left by the wayside when you go into certain industries or you do a certain thing. And coming back to that for me has been very good, like healthy, right? Because I
Yeah.
love that game. I've always loved that game. It's one of my favorite games, right? I love almost anything fantasy. I've read, so much fantasy books, and that's why like it really speaks to my like that's like, yeah, all right. Now we're speaking my language, which is something, I mean, we can see that just in general that, you know, if we take the industry as a whole, first of all, there's not that much creativity in it, right? If we whether health or fitness, and I just kind of lump these together because, yeah,
Yeah.
and it just kind of becomes this like, oh, this is the proven product, and repeat until rich, right? Basically, like the influencer business model. I have these
Hmm.
programs, and I'm gonna sell you these prefabricated programs, and you're gonna look like me, and like that's the pitch. Whereas,
Yeah.
you guys are coming with this awesome new thing that gets people involved in different ways, right? And has a larger framework around it than that would get people engaged or thinking about things, right? Because I guess we could find that in a lot of these cultures, the reflective capacity, and if we or just philosophy, when we think about like, okay, philosophy in the sense of I'm asking myself questions about the things I experience, that's kind of that's severely lacking, right? So it can also be taken to extremes, as we both have seen in the movement culture, where some people just kind of write things that make you go like, okay, but I just wanted to have an answer on, what exercise was good, rather than
Yeah.
this like the philosophical underpinnings of life. But there's a
Hmm.
time and place for everything. But in any case, right, so
Yeah.
this is it's nice to see people like you, and that's also why I wanted to have you on, right, coming with new things, and that are inherently you, let's say. And then of course part DJ and Jonathan, but that it's an extension of how you want to, let's say, show up in the world, right?
Hmm. Yeah. I think we all have a need to prove ourselves somehow, that we're
Mm,
successful or that we're just good at doing stuff.
mm,
But again, like our need to prove ourselves shouldn't be based on the need to place ourselves on some sort of hierarchy that's
mm,
based on like, you know, this veil of competitiveness.
mm,
It's okay to prove yourself by being yourself and coming up with new things and
mm,
just seeing how the world reacts to it. And if
mm,
the world reacts to it and you don't love it, probably not a good thing. If
mm,
the world reacts negatively to it, but you love it,
mm,
well, then you can readjust perhaps, or you can just keep doing your thing.
mm,
Um, I think we need to allow ourselves to not take the things we do too seriously.
mm,
Um, Ideas quickly become ideologies, and you own
mm,
ideas, but ideologies own you. So
mm,
be open to make fun of what you're doing,
mm,
while still respecting it.
mm.
You know, it's possible for something to be two things at once, both
Yes.
silly,
Mm,
stupid,
mm,
and also a life-changing opportunity for something for someone.
yeah, for sure. uh, Even though, I mean, maybe to some people these types of things sound paradoxical, but how do you put that, like in the Western zeitgeist or like mindset, right? Paradoxes, or it's conflicting, Whereas, not necessarily to say that that's more the case in Eastern philosophy, but if you step away from Western thinking, it's more like stacking, right? These ideas can coexist in this space, right? Because everything can coexist, whether or not it's a duality, right? So that's, I always find that fascinating where, yeah, you have all these elements available in this or in other things, and it doesn't need to be like a conflicting thing in your mind. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I mean, the connection between ideas are often more important than the ideas itself. You know, if
Mm,
you just think about ideas itself, you're gonna, like you said, you're gonna stack them on top of each other and then
mm,
hold one to be better than the other. But if
mm,
you think about the connection between ideas, you can
mm,
imagine a network instead of different nodes of ideas,
mm,
different traits, different qualities, different elements, both good and bad, existing in the same network. And
mm,
what you do is to not only analyze the idea, which is important, but you
mm,
also look at the connections because
mm,
sometimes the thing that messes up the network
mm,
is the connection between two ideas
mm,
or two elements or whatever you want to
mm.
call it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what we're just trying to do here is we're taking two vastly different ideas
Mm,
and then we're trying to make a connection and then we're going
mm.
to see if that connection sparks something positive. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I have no
Mm.
idea. The only way you find that out is by trying it.
Yeah, because with that being said about like, yeah, connecting ideas, which that model, by the way, I just love, right? Because it's synonymous with all the how organic structures exist, right? The universe or neural networks, right? It's a dots with connections. So I'm totally with that because you've
Pretty little image. Yeah.
exactly. So you've created these things and like, established a very creative element, and trying things, the experimenting is also like a huge thing. But you've also created the movement guild. I'm not sure if that's still running.
Yeah, it is. It
Yeah,
is.
good. Okay.
My little baby.
Yeah.
A lot of movement in these these business names: Online Movement
Mm,
University, Movement Quest, and now the Movement Guild.
mm.
We're gonna rebrand it, FYI. So it's gonna have a different
Okay.
name.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the Movement Guild is right now.
Mm,
We're currently doing uh, seasons of the Movement Guild. So now we're going
mm,
through what we call like the basics or the foundations or the fundamentals. We
mm,
just call it season one.
mm,
Um, and it's 4 months of online coaching
mm,
and an online course and an online community.
mm,
And what we do in each month is that we investigate a basic.
mm.
So we try to address basics or principles that uh, I personally feel don't get enough attention.
Sure.
So the first
Mm,
thing we take a look at, like in our first phase, we look at volume. So we don't
mm,
care about what you do; we care about how much you do of it.
mm,
Um, and we give lessons based on the majority of scientific evidence that is out there regarding to volume as it
mm,
relates to strength training and hypertrophy.
mm,
And then we give, because we address that topic, that also means that we give that responsibility to our members. So
mm,
we're going to talk about volume. Okay, so we're going to choose the options for the exercises that you can do this month, but you
mm,
choose the volume. You're going to
mm,
decide how many uh, sets you're going to do for these various body parts based
mm.
on the lessons that we give. The next
Ah,
month, we go into
mm,
auto regulation. So we're going to see
nice.
how do we adapt our training to how we feel at any
Mm,
given time.
mm,
So seeing as that is the topic this month, your responsibility is to choose. We're doing auto-regulating exercise. So
mm,
exercise selection. So you're going to choose the exercise you believe that you need to do
mm,
on that day.
mm,
And then after that, we have skill acquisition and prioritization. And after that, we have movement qualities and creativity.
mm,
Um, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's really cool
mm.
to see what people come up with, and people
Yeah.
come up with the most brilliant solutions if you only give them the opportunity to do so.
Because
So
you've
besides,
yeah.
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go, bro.
I was just gonna say I need to mention my uh, two colleagues and dear friends
Yeah.
here, Jeremy Pine, who is j- just such a good teacher.
Mm-hmm.
He is so elegant and succinct in the way he teaches. I have nothing but respect for this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Gopi, Gopi,
Mm-hmm.
who was a member in season one, but whose pure passion and drive and ability to connect with others made it so that we just had to put him on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was an obvious choice for a community manager. So
Nice.
that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, man.
And now we're getting in touch with more teachers who we believe can teach a
Mm-hmm.
basic
Mm-hmm.
a basic principle, which is like if somebody can teach a basic principle, uh, that is the highest amount of respect and compliment I can give to a teacher.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And that's, I mean, in that, like, I'm seeing the dot connect anyway, that it has like a, the base experience of these things is like getting people to experiment with the different things, like, you know, that keeps coming up, which is great. And then one thing that I recall, I'm not sure if I'm going to recall it like 100%, but it's a post that you made again, like it's, I don't know how long ago, but about the locus of control, and maybe even you shared like a piece of a paper or something. I just kind of remember it's coming by and reading it, or reading the post and reading about it, and that's something that has stuck with me for quite some time, and I think it popped up in your newsletter at some point as well. And that's sort of what I'm seeing in the movement guild, right? These people, they can come with their own uh, take on things and their own decisions, right? Because the locus of control, I think it states that the more autonomy you give someone, the more they feel like it's rewarding or worth doing, something like that. If I'm not
Yeah, I mean, autonomy is so important for so many different reasons, I think.
mm,
Number one would be like what you mentioned, like self-determination theory,
mm,
allowing
mm,
a person to feel like they're able to integrate a choice or an activity into their own persona
mm,
allows them to stay more motivated, which is
mm,
pretty freaking important. You
yeah,
need to be into what you're doing,
mm,
and you need to continue doing what you're doing if you want to see reap the benefits.
mm,
Another thing would be just pure pure performance wise. You
mm,
tend to perform quite a lot better,
mm,
both in terms of how the volume you choose and the intensity that you're able to produce
mm,
in an exercise or in an activity.
mm,
You tend to learn better, like you retain knowledge more if there's more autonomy.
mm,
Um, but then there's the other part, which I think is pretty freaking important, and that is how you influence your culture. Like
mm,
you yourself and your participation in your decisions
mm,
have an impact on other people and
mm,
have an impact on your culture.
mm,
Um, and that is like I don't like, let's say that I was let let's talk to John, movement guru, for a second. How horrible, like how shitty wouldn't the movement culture be if
mm,
I decided everything that was going to happen and
mm,
everything that should be done?
mm,
Like what a shitty situation, what a shitty culture.
mm,
Like sure, I'm biased towards my own opinions and my own thoughts because I
mm,
am me and I have an ego. But
mm,
still, I'm able to recognize that if I was to decide everything that was going to happen inside this culture, it would be
mm,
a very bad place to be. I want more opinions. I want more
mm,
people. I want more creativity. I want
mm,
more input. I want people to understand that they can learn something while still being able to teach something.
mm,
That to me is so much more important than having a predetermined truth
mm,
uh, presented to a bunch of people. So, autonomy, like two thumbs up, two
Mhm.
big old thumbs up for autonomy.
Yeah, man. And it's also, I mean, if we look at again the industry just in general that we're in, like we can't really speak of a lot of autonomy and especially a lot of auto regulation, right? A lot of the things it's like on this day you're gonna do this and then you're gonna do this and this is the way it is instead of okay this is where like this is the framework, right? And now
Mm.
find yourself within that framework and right tell me what you want to do. Like the principle is down regulation, how are you going to down
Mm.
regulate, right? Or the principle is up regulation, how are you going to up regulate? Which is it brings a lot of these fascinating things to the top for me, right? Because seeing that I'm into coaching and it's always like sort of a balance between giving them what they need, and it also depends on the context. If someone has zero idea about their options, then of course you educate them on their options first and then bring them to autonomy, which is the goal of the coaching, right? But like especially during that, it's enough of the a little bit like I guess we could say like parenting, where it's a little bit of pushing and pulling and still letting them make their own mistakes and find their own way to things, right?
Yeah, yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, I don't think that giving a beginner
Mm,
100% autonomy from
mm.
the get-go is a good idea. You need to you need to learn the rules to
Mm,
play the game. But
mm,
then you need to come up with your own game because this is
mm,
not a game. Like we're not playing soccer, all of
mm.
us. We're doing our own thing,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah.
our own process, it's our own practice, it's our own
Mm,
training.
mm,
But like I I totally understand why the culture has evolved the way it has. It's
mm,
because we have more beginners than we have veterans. So
mm,
we're always going to try to present whatever makes a beginner feel more comfortable, which is
mm,
going to be a very specific and rigid answer. Like, this is how you squat, this is how you train, this is how you
mm,
program, this is how you live, and this is how you eat.
mm,
Um, because beginners need more limitations
mm,
to make them feel safe, to make
mm,
them feel like they know where they're going. But it should only be done so in order to give them
mm,
momentum to walk down the path, and then they should start walking their own.
mm,
And to figure out how much autonomy to, um, I was about to say give a person, but you don't
mm,
give autonomy.
mm,
You recommend it, or you
mm,
encourage it, or you present it as an opportunity.
mm,
The amount of autonomy that you recommend to a person is very difficult to say. That's
mm,
you need to be able to relate to the person, and you need to
mm,
understand what sort of community they're in to know that, or to
mm,
have an idea of that.
mm,
So I understand why it's not more popular.
mm,
But I just because it's not terribly popular does not mean that it's not highly necessary.
mm. Yeah, for sure. And that kind of comes to another thing where it's kind of based on the quote of Julian Pinot, is the founder of StrongFit, who had a really good quote about that, based on his own Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu experience. That like when you get into right before your black belt, I think it's a purple belt before you get black, or is it brown?
Brown, brown.
Brown, okay, yeah.
Mhm.
So that when you get to your brown belt, that you like that's kind of the stage where me and Yolan were talking about, like that's where you find your own game, right? Then you start understanding the principles of Brazilian jiu-jitsu well enough that you can start applying things in your own way and have your own style and do your own things, right? And that's kind of, well, I won't use the word discouraged per se, but people aren't really brought that way as coaches, right? It's never really emphasized or said anywhere. It's not educated. It's just kind of like, this is the program. And if you're a PT in the gym, you're a little bit more constrained. But I mean, I'd be so crass to say is if you had a little bit bigger balls, you can still do whatever you want. But
Mhm.
creating that your own game is a very important point when it comes to evolving as a coach, right? Because I remember starting out as what I'm doing now in the holistic coaching, where I, I just based it off of the coaches that I had before, but what I was offering people wasn't my thing. I was offering their thing. Do you see what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
now, like when I went through that process, and now I'm offering my thing, which is still a combination of things, of course, as everyone gets their information from somewhere, but it's my approach. It's the way I see things. It's my game, and that was a huge shift in my own psychology, where it was like, wow, okay, here we go, right? So I'm finally able to offer like myself, but also my game to people and the way I do things, which is if you're listening as a coach, right, I highly recommend digging into that, so you can kind of come to that stage, right? Otherwise you never get past, or I'll put it like this, then you never get your black belt, right? Then you'll always be, or maybe you'll always be a purple belt instead of moving into brown and then into black, right?
Yeah. And
Mm,
I think it's important to mention that, your own thing,
mm,
uh, nobody can say or know what it looks like.
mm,
Um, I think your own thing, I can't remember who said this, but it's like porn. You know it
mm.
when you see it. And I think that your own thing, you know it when you feel it.
uh,
Uh, it's just about feeling a bit more scared and a bit more
mm.
excited.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, it also feels right. Like you kind of had that innate feeling where it's exciting and scary, but you go like, this feels like the thing I should be doing.
Yeah, yeah. Good
Mm.
point. Good point.
Yeah, man. All right, I think that's basically what I had in store or on my mind to like ask you and converse about. So first off, I really want to thank you for taking the time to chat with me.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for asking. Thanks for the opportunity.
My pleasure, bro. Anytime. And then please just plug the things we talked about, right? So where people can contact you and your different projects. So just
Uh,
go right ahead.
Shit, too many things.
They'll be in the description, but just
Go.
put them out
Uh,
there anyway.
yeah, like I'm trying to connect all the things that I do on my main
Mm,
website, which
mm,
is ewanjohn.com.
mm,
Um, and if you want to connect with me on social media,
mm.
I regret to inform you that I am not active, but I do check it. So especially messages, I just have a tendency not to post a lot anymore.
Yeah.
But that's at Yuanjon on
Mm,
Instagram. So if you shoot me a message there, if you wanna give me some feedback on something that I said, or if you disagree or agree with something, you
mm.
can get in touch with me there. And yeah,
Yeah.
um, that is my plug.
Yeah. Cool.
Yuanjon.com and at Yuanjon.
I'll put it in there. And if people are interested, let's say in starting their movement journey or their whatever, like besides movement culture, I'm just talking movement generally. What's like
Mm.
one tip you would give them to get started?
Oh, just try out a lot of things. It's like
Mm,
um, go through like this, decide for yourself to take a break from your regular training
mm,
or your regular thing, whatever it
mm,
might be, and maybe for just like 2 weeks or so, just try out a lot of different things. Let's go like, okay, I'm gonna try out this exercise, I'm gonna try out this piece of equipment, I'm gonna try
mm,
out this activity,
mm,
just for like 2 or 3 weeks. Um, and really, really don't be afraid of losing gains from stepping away from what you're currently doing.
mm,
Your body has the capability to remember a lot of the things that it's done,
mm,
and to maintain the amount of strength or hypertrophy that you have, which I
mm,
know that this is what most people fear, right? They're afraid
mm,
of um, not doing their regular training because they
mm,
think they will shrivel up. But that's not going to happen. It's not
mm,
going to happen. Take a break
mm.
and then try out different things,
Yeah.
and tell yourself that you're just trying it out. You're
Mm,
not mastering it.
mm. All
You
right.
don't have.
Well, there we go. That's beautiful, man. On that note, right? Thanks again, and then we'll catch up in the future.
Sure thing.
Have a good one.
You too, man.
Peace. There we go. It's a little slow. Stop